right, well, I'm welcoming my people here on Facebook Live. Welcome, everybody. We are here today with Natural Zing, and I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make a raw vegan burrito, but don't let the word raw scare you because it's super delicious and fresh and a perfect recipe as we're coming into the warmer months and we don't feel like turning on our ovens and our stoves. I'm going to show you how to make a bean and cheese combination. It's kind of, I call it cheese, but it could be kind of like beans too because I'm going to throw some cumin in. And yeah, we're going to use some of our famous or like favorite Natural Zing products. So let's start with the cheese recipe. And cheese is in quotes because it's vegan. I'm going to use, you can use, so if you guys have the recipes at home, you may have gotten the email with the recipe, or if you're watching me on Facebook Live, I'll just mention all the ingredients that go in. But the actual recipe calls for either macadamia nuts or cashews. But today I thought, since we already showed you guys some cashews this week, I thought I would choose sunflower seeds for a couple reasons. One, they're a lot less expensive if you are on a budget. So these are gonna cost you, you know, $3 or $4 a pound versus $15, $20 a pound. And sunflower seeds are a lot easier to digest than, let's say, a nut of some kind. So they're gonna be a lot lighter. And sunflower seeds have a lot of healthy ingredients, so we want to rotate our nuts and seeds for sure. We don't always want to use macadamia nuts or always use cashews or even always use almonds. Like, so I rotate. You could also use pumpkin seeds in this. I have my Natural Zing pumpkin seeds that you can make a kind of a green cheesy thing. It'll kind of be greenish, which is fun. And so don't be afraid to experiment with nuts and seeds. I probably wouldn't use anything like hazelnuts because that's kind of weird. But you know, just some neutral tasting nut. So the recipe calls for 1 cup of sunflower seeds. Now I've already, actually it calls for 2, but I'm just doing half a batch because I'm actually on a cleanse right now, and so I keep making all this food that I can't eat. So I'm just doing, so you can half this batch for sure if it's just you. But like we said, prepping more stuff ahead of time is always a good idea because you can eat dehydrated or eat it later. So either way, but. So a sprout, once you sprout the seeds, they're going to be a little bit wet, so you can even use like a heaping cup or a heaping 2 cups. So I'm just going to keep with the half recipe for you guys following me on Facebook. So it's 1 heaping cup of soaked sunflower seeds. And soaking is really important because it gets a lot of the dirt off and it also starts activating them so they're easier to digest. The next ingredient is going to be water. Actually, I realized I need to make my Irish moss paste before I do the sunflower seeds. So this is kind of a good thing. I always tell people read their recipe first. So I'll get those out in a minute. So this is what soaked Irish moss looks like. It does look like a sea monster kind of, like it's kind of fun. And remember that I talked a little bit about iodine and how important iodine is in our diet. This is where you get your iodine. We're not getting it in our salt anymore because we're not eating iodized salt, which is not even the proper kind of iodine. It needs to have iodide in it as well, which is natural. So you want to use your moss to get your seaweed. To get your minerals. You can use other seaweeds as well, but this is a really great neutral one. I use it to thicken my cheesecakes as well. So I chopped it, as you saw, a little bit. It just helps your blender for them not to get caught in there. What it looks like when it's dry is it's really salty. So that's another reason we soak it. It's super salty, if you can see that. And that's a preservative on there. So it'll keep in the cupboard dry for years. Or once you soak it and you haven't blended it, it'll keep a couple weeks in the fridge, but it will start to turn pink if you keep it in there too long. So I'm heating up some water because I like to do hot water. This is a trick I've learned. Hot water with Irish moss makes it blend a lot faster. So I'm just kind of filling it up to cover it in the blender because I want it to be a little bit thick because it's going to help the cheese to thicken. All right, so we just want it to blend long enough to really get, it's kind of like, I'll pour it out so you can kind of see what it looks like. It kind of has like a gelatinous quality to it. Now, as this sits, if this sits in the refrigerator, it's going to turn solid. This is basically the substitute for vegan gelatin. So if you want to make anything thick and, you know, like just dense, even like your cheeses or your cheesecakes or your desserts, This is the trick. So this will get thicker as it sits. So I'm gonna go back and put my sunflower seeds in. I'm not even gonna bother cleaning out the blender because why do I need to? It's gonna go right back in. We need 3/4 cup of water in here, which I actually did not get yet. I will grab. How much water you use is all about how thick or thin you want your cheese sauce. So 3/4 cup water, and then 3 ounces, which is, your recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of moss, but I use this fun little tool called the Metric Wonder Cup. And what it does is I would take something like 3/4 of a cup, if you can see that, and then half of that would be, if I look at the ounces, would be 3 ounces. So it's a great way to divide 3/4 of a cup in half. And the other thing I like about this cup is I fill it up, and then you can use this for oil or nut butters or honey. You just push and it clears it out. So you're not like digging out from the cup, which a lot of times is hard to get stuff out of the bottom. So that's one of my favorite tools to use. Plus it has all the metrics on here. The next ingredient is our onion powder. We're gonna put 1 tablespoon in. Then our lemon juice. I recommend using a little bit more when you're doing sunflower seeds than if you're using cashews or macadamia nuts, because sunflower seeds tend to turn brown. So I'm gonna do like 3 tablespoons, and you can always add more at the end once you taste it. We got our onion powder to give it a really good, oh, I put my onion powder in already. We got our nutritional yeast to give it a cheesiness, 1 tablespoon of that. Miso also gives it a really good cheesy quality. This is chickpea miso, and I'm using 1 tablespoon. That's gonna add an awesome flavor to it. And then a little bit of salt, 1/2 teaspoon, and this is mineral salt. We've got the Natural Zing Pink Himalayan, or this is, you can use real salt as well. I combine the two sometimes and use them both mixed, because then I'm getting really great source of high mineral salt. And then that's it for the cheese, and I'm just gonna blend it. If you wanna make this more colorful, throw like a piece of carrot in, chopped carrot, or you could throw in a piece of bell pepper, red bell pepper or orange bell pepper, or some turmeric or some beet powder. Any of those. Don't put too much beet in though, because it'll turn red and that'll be weird. But any of those will make a really good color. We're trying to show you different foods. Like when we talked about what we wanted to offer for you guys, we wanted to have, like we had breakfast yesterday, and we had a smoothie on Monday. We wanted to show you, like, this is an entree. So we, not just like, hey, if I'm gonna switch my diet and start eating healthier, like I can't just do, you know, smoothies and juices or like dips. I gotta have the whole shebang. So this is why we're showing you this wrap today, because we wanna show you how all the pieces kind of fit together. So now that we've made that, we are going to take our collard wrap, which I have had frozen. So my trick, and I don't know what you do, Jeff, but my trick is that I freeze my collard wraps as soon as I get them home. And then when I want one, then I lay them flat as possible so they don't get all like curled up in there. And when I want to eat one, they last for months in the freezer, by the way, in a Ziploc bag. When I want to eat one, I just take it out and run it under warm water, which washes it at the same time. And then it gets nice and soft. The reason I do this is so I don't have to blanch it on the spot, because then I have to boil the water, and it's just one more step. And if we eat collard wraps right out of the fridge, for me anyway, it's too fibrous. I don't like that. Like I've gone to raw food restaurants where they're serving you these collard wraps, and you're like, oh, I think my stomach starts to hurt from just having to digest these raw collards. So I prefer mine frozen ahead of time. And what I'm doing now is I'm taking the stem off. It's called deveining. And you want to not cut the leaf. So you just gently cut that thick stem off the back with a nice sharp knife. I'm using a Mac knife. And you can get Mac knives on purejoyplanet.com, that we sell them, and we think they're amazing. And this is our favorite one, which is the 8-inch cook's knife. It's the only knife I really ever use. Every once in a while I use a paring knife. So see that? That's like a nice wrap. I can do it any way I want. I can do it this way. I can do it long ways. So you got options here, which is awesome. I'm gonna do this one long ways because I wanna cut it in half and kind of show you guys all the tricks. So I cooked this ahead of time, but you do have the recipe. It was just basically, the recipe called for 15 mushrooms sliced. I think I quartered these. I did throw in some zucchini as well, like half a zucchini chopped, and a quarter of an onion or half an onion, and then put a little bit of cumin, some salt. This is a trick, and it's not in your recipe, but I love to add a splash of apple cider vinegar to most things that I'm cooking because it gives it that tang that I just love. I love the digestive, that it helps us digest our food a little bit better too. So I'm gonna start with the mushies, and I'm gonna put them in here. And this was one of those things that I made ahead of time and froze. So I was able to take it out of my freezer last night because I knew I was making this wrap today. So I didn't have to be like cooking it right now. And if you make a big enough batch, these are really great size bowls. They come with like a little rubber lid. You can find these in Costco and most, probably even in like Walgreens and those kind of places. Freeze a bunch instead of one big one, so then you just label it. You've got it in your freezer and there's a stack of 4, and that'll last for at least a month or 2. The other ingredient that's not on your recipe, but I thought, Jeff asked me yesterday, what happened to your kelp noodles? So Natural Zing has this Gonzo family size kelp noodle bag, so I did the whole thing. I softened it. I think that was on day 2. And so I have these kelp noodles in the fridge, which are a lot like glass noodles. So I'm kind of turning this from a burrito into maybe just more of an Asian wrap, I don't know. But I'm putting some glass noodles in there, and it kind of makes good filler and good texture in your wrap. And that's just a fun bonus, you don't have to do that. And then we'll take some of this yummy cheese, which is looking really good. Again, I store all my stuff in glass jars, so you just, these are 3 cup size jars, which fit a lot of these kind of things. So anyway, this cheese can go right in there. And this will last in your fridge for about a week because it's got all that lemon in it. You can even throw a raw clove of garlic in this recipe and that'll help preserve it even longer. Or some ginger. So play around with your flavors. You can make this into so many different things by just adding different spices and different vegetables, like I said, like a pepper or a carrot. But then you're just gonna kind of put in there as much as you want, like a drizzle. Not too much because it's just gonna kind of ooze everywhere. Once this sits in your fridge with the Irish moss, it's gonna be a lot thicker, so it'll be more like a spread that you could put on first. Think of it more like a cheese spread that you would get, like a cream cheese. I think that's it. Oh, no, it's not. We got some mustard. I love the Annie's horseradish mustard. This is one of the only mustards I've found that doesn't use white vinegar. It uses apple cider vinegar. Our guts don't really like white vinegar. It's kind of inflammatory, so I always use as much as I can Dijon mustard with the apple cider. And I love how I'm just zigzagging this on here and it's looking really good. I could throw some colorful veggies in. I've got this other fun tool I want to show you called, it's also from Progressive. We used to sell all this stuff, that's why I have all this, and we used it in the culinary school. And so I would just do like a number 1. It slides from 1 to 3 on here, and it has a lock button so I can't cut myself when I'm washing it, which I love that feature. So I'm gonna do a number 1, and I'm gonna do some red radish that I've already cut the ends off of. And so like I mentioned this, I think on day 2, that if you don't love the bite of radish, if you do really thin slices, like so, hope you guys can see that. It's paper thin. I'll hold it up to show you. So you get the flavor and the color without the hot bite of the radish. The other kind of radish I have, because I do love radish, is daikon, and I already peeled this ahead of time, and you can do really thin daikon slices. This is also great to put on top of salads. We really need the sulfur in radishes. Radishes are so healthy for us, so get your radishes in there everywhere right now in the stores. I think that's it now, so I can seal it up. And if there's anything else you want to put in, like I have my own alfalfa sprouts that I grew, I can put that in, or fenugreek sprouts. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up, and it's gonna wrap up really nicely because I didn't overfill it. A mistake I see, we have in level 1 of our culinary training, we have raw vegan sushi rolls. And when the students overfill them, it really becomes a problem. So make 2 instead of overfilling it if you're really hungry, because you want it to wrap up. Now, wouldn't this be great if you just wrapped this in some wax paper and threw it in a baggie, and you could take this to work for lunch or on an airplane even. I've taken stuff like this on an airplane, and my seatmates usually like, I've had so many comments on like, where'd you get that? I made it and brought it with me because being prepared. So we're talking about a 5-day clean food challenge right here. And Jeffrey was talking about it earlier. Being prepared is the hugest way that you can succeed. Whether it's in business, we know this from talks on business, whether it's in life, whether it's with your spouse, whatever, like thinking ahead of time, how do I want to communicate? And in this case, how do I want to do my food? Like I want to, do my shopping list and get organized. And the other thing is, if you're watching this right now and you haven't been eating clean, like maybe you're still drinking a lot of alcohol or sugar or grains, and you're just tired all the time, eating this way will make you feel better. So just push through, give yourself a week or two, and you're gonna, when you eat something so vital and alive, like one of these rolls, the greens alone are so alkalizing. Can you guys see that? So yummy. And you could probably, if you're really hungry, have 2 of these, but these are just gonna make you feel full but super energized. You're not gonna get that tired feeling you get from eating grains. A lot of people eat grains at lunchtime like a sandwich. So this is your new sandwich, people, or your new burrito. Don't go out and get that food that we don't know what's in it or how those animals have been treated or even what oils they're using, those inflammatory oils. You wonder why you wake up with puff under your eyes? A lot of times it's just the oils that are in food when you're eating out. So here's your wrap and roll. Jeff, I know you're a chef too. Helen told me you're an amazing chef. And once you start kind of getting into textures and things, I feel like that's what makes the difference between good and great in foods, is that you pay attention to the textures. Like you said, like you want it to have a great mouthfeel, not just be, well, it's raw and it's healthy, eat it, it's good for you. Like, that doesn't really fly with most people, not in the long run. The other thing that I didn't put in the wrap that you can do to make it lighter and just add more herbs is we have the Trader Joe's organic basil. You could put cilantro in. You could put really any herb that's growing in your garden. I've got rosemary and tarragon growing now. You'd have to chop the rosemary. But yeah, anything like you said to do to lighten it. Even shredded vegetables in this wrap. Like people want to know, what do I do with beets? Shred it up and put it in things like this. So yeah, fill it up with a lot of veggies or blend it right into the sauce like you said. So I'll see you guys out there in cyber world. Thanks for